vineyards, to wheat and rice.
War veterans who settled on dry, worthless blocks suddenly had water. And state departments handed out water licences like Fate Lamington's. For a few quid, farmers had the right to an annual allocation of water in perpetuity.
One of the great problems we've faced in terms of managing a river properly is that the Snowy Mountains scheme set up a system for distributing almost free water that really addicted farmers to cheap water. And it's very much like a heroin addiction. Once you've actually invested all the infrastructure you need to grow your crops at that certain water price, it's very hard to withdraw, very hard to pull out because you've invested so much.
Incredible as it may seem to city folk, much of irrigation is done literally by flooding the land to grow grass for both dairy and beef cattle and for sheep. If the land is levelled perfectly, all that's needed for an even cover is gravity.
This property, if it wasn't irrigation country, would run properly 300 sheep if you were lucky.
Ian Braithwaite's property is viable because he grows rice, the crop with the thirstiest reputation.
I wonder how this is germinating.
Further south, these channels are controlled by Murray Irrigation, a company owned by 3,400 farmers, mostly rice growers. Together, they use as much water as the whole of South Australia.
As I understand it, rice is not an illegal substance in Australia, although occasionally you do feel a bit like the general manager of a tobacco company, I've got to say. But it's just interesting that rice has been chosen by the Australian psyche to hate, you know. And Australians love eating rice. As a crop, it's one of the few crops that has land use restrictions. That is, you can't grow rice on certain soils.
It uses a lot of water.
It's the world's most efficient rice-growing enterprise. It's a business the farmers own. And if the farmer is using a lot of water and you're telling him he's stupid, why don't you let him work that out on his farm?
Many farmers believe they should be left to sort out the river themselves. They will do it through savings in the system and better management.
Nice to see that we're getting some press coverage.
Good, you are getting some press coverage. It's lovely, isn't it?
Yes.
Enter the first of several multi-millionaires with watery interests in this story, businessman Richard Pratt.
There's not a check behind this, is it?
I'm just do it just right there, that's it. So I can fit the dollar sign in.
I just wish that we'd help the farmers a little bit more and encourage them to do what they're doing is better. By the way, it's raining.
It is raining.
It is raining.
Extraordinarily enough. In a drought in Griffith.
Yes, in Griffith.
Richard Pratt is the new rainmaker in Griffith. He wants to replace miles of open channels which leak and evaporate water with pipes.
Yes, and you've got contracts with the big wine companies?
Yes, we've got, we're growers
yes.
with Orlando. We're 100% contracted to Orlando's.
Yes. They wouldn't give you contracts if you didn't have modern equipment and making good quality fruit.
Well, that probably
Richard Pratt is funding research into less thirsty crops and offering to lend money to growers to upgrade their flood irrigation systems to highly efficient drip irrigation. And he wants government to chip in.
It's a little bit expensive.
Yes.
You're looking at $5,000 to $6,000 a hectare.
I've offered, personally, to guarantee loans up to $100 million so that they can borrow from the banks the money, and I will support their borrowings by a collateral of $100 million. Now, I think that's a lot of money.
Will government take him up on his offer of a $100 million underwriting?
A bit early to say yet. But I should say I'm pretty keen on pursuing the option.
Yeah, it's really, really nice.
High-tech irrigation may help, but to date, elsewhere on the river, water savings have been hard to find.
They just thought it was going to be easy, that there were going to be all these projects everywhere. Of course, if they were bloody easy, people would have got the water. I mean, they would have found the water and they'd be using it on a farm somewhere at Deniliquin or Hay or Rochester or Shepparton. I mean, this water stuff's quite hard.